Hi everyone. Today we're going to be working on variables and expressions for Algebra 1. My name is Ryan and this is Math with RG. All right, let's get started. So, the very first question we have is write a verbal expression for each algebraic expression. Number 8, h minus 7. Now, we could start off by just writing h minus 7. That's one option, but there is a second option, and it looks like this. 7 less than h. Okay, so that second option is a little more tricky, right? Why is it 7 less than h? Because the most common mistake I see in my tutoring business is that when students look at this, they go, okay, 7 less than h, that means 7 minus h. But actually it doesn't. So if you think about it for a moment, let's say, I, Ryan, have $10, and then you, as the student, has $5. How would we write a statement to say that you have less money than I do, right? So we would write, okay, well, the student has less money than Ryan, right? So we could say something like, the student has $5 less than Ryan, right? So wouldn't that mean that it would be Ryan minus the $5? Do you understand? Great job. All right, let's go to the next example. The next example says 3x squared. Well, if you remember back when you were first learning this, when you put numbers and letters next to each other, it means multiplication. So it actually says 3 times x squared. Okay, so we can write that out. 3 times x squared. Okay, very good. Let's go to the next one. All right, so this is number 10. So this one says 5 plus 6m cubed. So 5 plus 6m cubed. Okay, so what word do we use for plus, right? When we're adding, we say it like this. See, we all make mistakes. It's okay. The sum of 5 and now we have to talk about the multiplication. So we can use another word instead of times, like I did in the last example. We can use product. Okay, so the sum of 5 and the product of 6 and m cubed. Okay, now let's read this one more time. The sum of 5 and the product of 6 and m cubed. Well, when we say the product of 6 and m cubed, order of operations tells us that we have to do the multiplication first, unless I had put a parentheses, right? And a verbal explanation of parentheses would be the quantity of this and that. So that would tell me to put it in parentheses first. All right, so one more time. The sum of 5 and the product of 6 and m cubed. So that tells me that I do 6 times the m cubed, and then I will add that to 5. And that's what we get. Let's go back up to number 9 for just a moment, And we can write this one other way, which is using that word product. So product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So the product of 3 and x squared. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next example. So the next example is this. So I'm going to use the very popular variable, x. So we have x and then increased. So that's plus and then 9. All right, let's go to the next one. So number 12, we have, okay, so in this example, they want you to again write an algebraic expression. So let's read this one more time. 2/3 of a number d. So let's just start with that right there. 2/3 of a number d. So first of all, a number d, right, is just a variable. So we're going to use the variable d. Okay. When it says 2/3 of, okay, is a keyword for multiplication. 2/3 of d. So we will write 2/3, and you could put a little dot if you wanted to. That symbols multiplication as well. So 2/3 times d. And then it says to the third power. Okay, so here's where we have to be a little bit careful. We got to read that one more time. 2/3 of a number d to the third power. 2/3 of a number d to the third power. Well, that literally means that we have to do d to the third power. 2/3 of a number d to the third power. Now, you ask, well, how come it's the third power only to the d and not to the whole thing? Okay, great question. So if they had said something like this, the quantity of 2/3 and a number d to the third power, then that would mean that we would put parentheses around the whole thing and then raise that all to the third power. But because they didn't say the quantity, then we don't do it. All right, and of course, another way you could just write this is just 2/3 and then d cubed, right? Third power means cubed. Okay, let's do another example. So we have number 13. Okay, 5 less than 4 times a number. 5 less than 4 times a number. Okay, so I need to point this out again because this is the most common mistake I see when my students are working on this for the first time, is they go 5 less than, okay, so that means 5 minus. Again, that's not true. So in this type of verbal expression, what you need to do is instead of starting with the 5 less than, we're going to start with the second part. So 4 times a number. All right, so 4 times a number. What does that mean? Well, we take the number 4, and then we just pick any variable that we like. Since they didn't say a variable, they just said a number, right? An a number could mean any number ever. So we just pick a variable. Here we go. 4 times a number. I'm going to again use my favorite x variable, but I make it a fancy x so that we don't think it's a multiplication symbol. Even though in Algebra 1, they don't use x as a multiplication symbol anymore. Okay, so 4 times a number. All right, so now we go back to the beginning. It says 5 less than 4 times a number. So 5 less than minus 5. All right, very good. All right, so in this next part, what they want you to do is just evaluate. Evaluate. So that's just a fancy word for they just want you to get the answer, right? They just want you to solve it. Okay, so here's what we do. Problem. 2 to the 5th power. Okay, 2 to the 5th power. What does that mean? Now, I'm first going to give you just a tip about studying. What I want you to understand about studying and about doing your work and taking a test is that it's so important to read the instructions twice and then to say what you're doing out loud if you're studying at home, or if you're taking a test, say it in your mind so that you don't, make as many mistakes, right? We are human. We will make mistakes. That will happen, right? We're not looking for perfection here. But if you do this method, your ears will catch a mistake, if there is one, faster than your eyes will. So if I say what I'm doing out loud, then I will be able to activate all these senses. So watch. What does 2 to the 5th power actually mean? It means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So you see how there's 5 2's there. So 2 to the 5th power means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, now when I said that out loud, as I was doing it, right, it activated. My eyes were seeing it, my ears were hearing it, my mouth was speaking it, and my hand was writing it. So I was building all this muscle memory between my mouth moving, my hand moving, my eyes were seeing it, my ears were hearing it. So it allows me to process things much more efficiently. Now again, if you're in school and you have to be quiet and you're taking a test or you're just studying in class, just say it in your mind. I promise you, practice this over time and it will help you. Okay, so let's break this down. Here we go. We have 2 times 2. That's 4. Then we have 4 times 2. That is 8. Then we have 8 times 2. That is 16. And then we have 16 times 2. And that is 32. Okay, so 2 to the 5th power is equal to 32. Okay, so for variables and expressions for Algebra 1, we've got a word problem. This is number 17. Fantastic Bowling Alley charges $2.50 for shoe rental plus $3.25 for each game. Write an expression representing the cost to rent shoes and bowl G games. Okay, so what do they want you to do? They want you to write an expression representing what they just wrote in here. So let's read this again. Fantastic Bowling Alley charges $2.50 for shoe rental plus $3.25 for each game. So we can start with the $3.25 for each game. Remember, they want you to write an expression. We don't know how many games you're going to play. That doesn't matter. What matters is that we can have an expression to figure out an infinite number of games, right? So here we go. It costs $3.25 for each game, and they said G games, right? They chose the variable G to represent games. That makes sense. So we just do times G, right? Because if it's $3.25 for each game, let's say I was going to play 7 games, then it would be $3.25 times 7. Okay, and then we have to add in the shoe rental. So it said plus, so we do plus $2.50. And there you have it, everybody. Great job on finishing today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, tell your friends and family. And if you want to dive deeper into chapter test work, you can check out my school platform, skool.com. The link will be in the bio below. And if you want more information on one-on-one tutoring, you can check out my website, rgtutors.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.